Courtney Dauwalter, welcome to the Single Track Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. And I know that the main topic at hand is the Bandera 100K this coming Saturday, but this is our first time chatting on the podcast, and there's a few questions I've always wanted to ask you. And the first one, this involves reflecting back a bit on when you first got into the sport. I've always been curious, what did you think was possible for your career? Like, did you always imagine that becoming a professional and achieving the success you've achieved was in the realm of possibility, or was this going to be a hobby? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, no, I had no idea. I didn't know ultra running was a sport. I sort of stumbled into it after a few road marathons, and I quickly fell in love with it, and was like discovering all these new races all the time and having my mind blown that people were doing these courses and, just like traversing these mountains with their feet. I couldn't understand it, but I knew that I loved it and I loved the community. So I wanted to be a part of it right away. But I didn't foresee that I could be a person to run 100 miles. In fact, the first 100-mile race I did, I dropped out of it at around mile 60 because I convinced myself that I couldn't do 100 miles and that it was a joke that I was trying and I should just, stop and be okay with running 50 miles. So I had no idea.
Well, we're in 2022, or sorry, I should say 2023 now. I always
get
that
it.
confused. Yeah, we made it. I'll be calling it 2022 probably for the next 2 months. But I'm curious, based on that, just given where you're at in your career, is there anything you have changed your mind about in terms of what's possible? Because I know that, you're famous for enjoying sort of like a lack of planning. Going into races, you kind of like to run intuitively and off field. But when it comes to like goal setting and long-term planning, has anything changed for you?
I think the biggest thing ultra running has taught me is that the bar we set for ourselves is usually too low. And we should, raise it up 3 notches where it feels like kind of scary and crazy. And that's the thing that we could go after and just see. And like every time I sign up for a race or, go out for an adventure, I'm trying to always it still feels crazy, like that our tiny feet and legs can move us, 100 miles across a mountain range. That still blows my mind. But to feel that, it's a little bit crazy that we're doing this feeling is what I want.
That's fascinating. So even when you think about like the course records you've achieved, the wins you've achieved in retrospect, with where your mind's at now, do you think you were setting the bar too low even in those instances and that there's still more to accomplish?
I hope so. I mean, I hope to always be looking for my limits, but to never actually find them. So whenever I finish something, it never feels like done and dusted. It always feels like enjoy the moment, but then also reflect on what could I have changed or what could I try next time or what variable could I, work with to see if that helps or not. I think that's so interesting, and to never feel like something is, done or perfect is important to me.
This is a question that I asked Jim Walmsley before UTMB earlier last year. And I think it might be relevant to you because you both came up into the sport at relatively the same time, like in the mid 2010s. Are you, and it seems like you are, but are you as excited and as motivated to get out the door and to push limits as you were in, say, 2018, 2019?
Absolutely. I think more. I think the more I learn about the sport and the more I experience and the more things I do, the domino pushed over of wondering, what else is possible. And that line of dominoes they keep falling, and I keep, wondering where that leads to. So I'm absolutely as excited about it. And I think it's a really fun time in ultra running right now. There's huge growth in the sport, more people signing up for these races and trying them, more coverage of it, bringing these races to people's living rooms is pretty cool. The women who are crushing distances and races is exciting. So all of it is, I'm still really fired up about it.
One more question on this front. I love how you've talked about it on the Rich Roll podcast about the pain cave and taking the pickaxe and making the space bigger. We talk a lot about the physical toll of this sport. I think it's interesting to talk as much about the mental as well. Is it as accessible as it's ever been for you mentally to go to the well in races? Have you found that has been an expanding capability, or it has been contracting and it's harder and harder each race to go there?
For me, I think because this visual I have of it is a cave, and when I go into the cave, it's the same cave every race, and I'm going to the very back corners and chiseling to make it bigger. It feels more accessible because it's the same cave. I've made it larger. I want to dive into it every single time, and I want to get to that back corner so that I can make it even more spacious for my next visit. And I still find that really fun, which I think is important for that mental side. Because the mental, your brain can get really tired. Sometimes after a race, my brain is the most tired part on me, and my legs are ready to run again, but my brain is like, let's take a week of, eating ice cream on the couch here for a minute. But I think that being able to grow that mental strength is attached for me visually to this cave. So it feels like I can see the growth there because I have this visual of the cave getting bigger.
In your experience, has it been easier to improve physically or mentally as an ultra runner?
I don't think either are easy. I think I understood that running was a physical activity immediately. I understood that what I was undertaking was a physical thing, and I didn't immediately understand that it was also mental. And so it took me a few more years to grasp the mental game of ultra running and how important our brains are and how important what we tell ourselves in those hard moments is.
Yeah.
And I more quickly understood that running, is like a thing you can train, and you're putting one foot in front of the other, all of those physical aspects of it.
This is probably an insanely premature question because you're clearly still at the very height of your powers, but how much longer do you want to keep at this for in terms of being a professional athlete, being highly competitive? Is this just like an era of your life, or do you want to play this infinite game if it's possible?
I hope to be running my entire life, and I hope to be part of the ultra running world for my entire life. I don't, obviously that role will change a lot over the years, but for now, I don't have any desire to stop pinning on race bibs and giving it my all every single time. So for the foreseeable future, I still find this exciting and fun, and I feel, like it's something I want to keep pursuing so that I don't wonder what if.
Switching gears just a little bit, in my mind, you're one of the very few people in the community that have transcended the sport and appealed to a wider audience. I've always been curious, do you welcome the pressure, and I'll use the word responsibility, of being an ambassador at that kind of level? Talk about that if you don't mind.
I never could have predicted this chapter of my life would happen. And so my husband and I, while we're in this chapter, are trying to do it as best we can and as full on as we can and enjoy it as much as we can. And part of that, has been like getting to meet people out on the trails or in the grocery store or in the airport and hear a little bit about their story or their goals or, what they're motivated to try. And so that feels really special to be able to connect to people like that. And that's part of this chapter that we're in.
And I think it's because our sport is so small. It's almost like we're one big family, that once you transcend our ecosystem and you become at least somewhat of a public figure, there are unique challenges like you've just described. Do you feel like it's easy to be yourself in this position?
I think if you asked anyone who knew me growing up, they would never have predicted that I would willingly talk to strangers or talk in public. Like, public speaking mortified me when I was growing up, and it would make me feel just like sick to my stomach. I would never voluntarily talk, basically. But I think because I love ultra running so much, I feel really passionate about it. It's easy to talk about, and it's easy to, I guess, like, step into a role that I would have never foreseen for myself, because I'm just so excited about it and love it so much. And so feeling that is like, I want to spread that, and I want more people to find the thing that fires them up in the same way.
It's funny because I've done 170 something episodes of the podcast, and you're probably one of the easiest people to talk to. So the idea that there was another era in life where it was, you prefer not to talk is interesting. A couple more questions. So some athletes in your similar position, and this can be in basketball, LeBron James, the whole like shut up and dribble type stuff, the Colin Kaepernick stuff. We've seen Killian do some stuff in our sport. Some athletes at your level, they decide to be outspoken on social issues, economic issues, the environment, etc. Again, because of your status in the sport, do you ever feel pressure to be more than an athlete and to champion initiatives in any particular area?
I think currently my big hope is to light sparks for people and to help people feel more motivated to step outside their comfort zone or to try something that sounds impossible and just see. And while doing those hard things, to enjoy it, like enjoy the process, enjoy those tough moments. We can choose our attitudes about things and how, we go about living our daily lives. And so that's where I feel I can make the most contribution, like the biggest contribution right now. And so currently, like that's how I want to, impact the world.
Do you ever get approached by people?
Do I get approached by people?
Yeah, saying like, help us with this, or give a comment here or there.
Not a ton on like the buckets you referenced, I would say. Like, I don't know, but I also hope, like, I'm a growing, evolving human who learns things along my path too. And so who knows, eventually where I'll feel like I can make a big impact on people around me or the world around me. And so I hope for all of us, that's always a, moving target of, where we want to focus or how we can, be the domino pusher or, a spark lighter for a web of the community around us.
And I think you've talked about it in that last question there, but what else do you anticipate is a part of your legacy when it's all said and done? Like either from a performance standpoint or from the way you inspire people, what comes to mind for you right now?
In the end of it all, oh man. I don't need anyone to remember a single result or race I did or time or place. But what I hope people will remember about me is that I made them smile and that I helped them or helped be a tiny, part of their story in trying something difficult or pushing themselves to, do something hard. And I hope to be a model that you can be working really, really hard at something and find the time to enjoy it and find the time to be supportive of people around you.
Moving on to Bandera, what brings you to this race?
I heard they're giving out golden tickets.
So it's a means to an end.
No, well, yeah. I mean, I want to race Bandera because I would like to get a bib for Western States. And so we'll see if that's possible. But I also love trying new races, and I haven't run in the San Antonio area. So I'm excited to, check out the trails there, hang with that community, and have a fun weekend.
How's training been going? Can you talk about the last couple months in terms of what's given you positive feedback and that's been making you feel ready for this coming Saturday?
We will see how training is going on Saturday. But I ended my season at the end of October this past year, and then did a really full reset for the month of November. A big rest, a big break, recharge, and just kind of chill. And so in the month of December, I've basically been just like trying to find some running legs to bring to Texas with me. So we'll see how that went.
You mentioned Western States and how, if a ticket happens, you'll take it. I also know that you're signed up for Hardrock. Do you see any potential conflict of interest there in terms of which one you would prioritize in training?
The conflict of interest there is exactly what I want. I am really intrigued by that double, the Western States Hardrock double, and how to stack them together 3 weeks apart, these 200-mile races that are fairly different in their styles and what's required from them. So I would love the opportunity to try that for myself and to tinker with, like, what does that training look like going into Western States to be ready for Western States while keeping Hardrock, in mind. And it can't really be on a back burner. That's still on a front burner. And what do those 3 weeks between look like? So I would love that opportunity. And if I get the chance, I would be racing Western States full on, like that's my only race, but then trying to race Hardrock the same way that I would if that was my only race. So seeing what's possible with that.
You've already had a great day at Western before. You've won that race. You almost won it a second time. You could say that injuries curtailed that. This time around, given that Hardrock will also be in the mix, are you still I shouldn't say are you still. Is a course record at Western States on your mind, or do you feel like maybe there are different things to race for there, given that you might want to leave some in the tank for Hardrock?
If I do the double, I would not try to leave anything in the tank at Western States. So I would race that like it's all I have for the summer. So give it everything I have. But when I race, I never have a place or a time in mind. So I would just take that day as best I could and finish as best I could with, whatever's dealt, and see where that lands me.
Awesome. Well, Courtney, such a pleasure to have you on the show. We're excited to follow your race at Bandera here in a couple days. And of course, excited to see how the rest of the season unfolds. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. See you on the trails.